Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, September the 16th. And welcome to our commentary. Before I go on, I just want to wish all of our Mexican friends a happy Independence Day. This is Mexico's Independence Day. I'm not sure if it was 1810 or 1821. That's the only date that I'm not 100% on. But I lived in Mexico and I lived there for a couple of years or a few years when I was working there. And I remember there was a big ceremony and, a big, obviously, parade and all of that. So it's usually a very happy day. So we want to salute all of our Mexican friends on their Independence Day down in Mexico. And as they like to say, Viva Mexico. That's what they like to say down there. Let me begin with something happening here in Texas. Today, the governor of Texas, a man who I voted for, I guess, three times, 2014, 2018, and 2022. I really like Governor Abbott. I think he's done a fantastic job running the state. We've been attracting all kinds of investment. Now, that's not all because of him. That's because of the economic system that we have, but nevertheless, he is the face of the state, and he's been a very successful governor, I think, in so many ways. And one of the best things that he has done is really tackle the border problem and basically say, if the federal government is not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And, he's been very successful in winning these lawsuits against the federal government on different things on the border. Well, Governor Abbott came out today and did something that I think is great, and that is he decided to name this Venezuelan criminal gang, or whatever they're called. I don't have their full name in front of me right now. I think it's known as TDA. Those are their initials, but it doesn't matter what their name is. They've been in the news quite a bit, not just here in Texas, but in Colorado and in other cities, because, they're unfortunately, they've come into, when you bring in 15 million people into the country without vetting them, well, you're going to get some problems like these. And, they've been causing a lot of problems, to say the least, in various parts of the country. Well, the governor has decided to take it on directly, and he has named them basically a terrorist organization, therefore giving him much more bigger powers and much broader powers to tackle these people. So I think this is a great idea. Now, why the governor of Arizona doesn't do this, why the governor of New Mexico doesn't do this, why the governor of California doesn't do this, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue, but for some reason they don't want to do it. But our governor is doing it. And I think that not only is it going to be accepted by the public, but I think it's good for our security and our safety. I mean, these are criminal elements who enter the country, and they're engaging in a lot of different activities. You heard about those apartments in Aurora, Colorado. You heard about some of the criminal activity in New York. All of it, not all of it, but a lot of it related to these folks. So I'm glad that the governor is taking it head on, and he's going to challenge them. This governor has already pretty much shut down the border. I mean, it's very difficult to get into Texas these days, which is why they're going to Arizona and creating so many problems over there. So I think this governor has done a great job in tackling the border crisis, and I'm sure he would rather have the federal government do it. But if the federal government is not going to do it, he has a responsibility as the governor of Texas, not just to protect our border, but to protect the safety of our state. So congratulations to Governor Abbott for tackling a problem, something that unfortunately a lot of politicians don't like to do, but he's taking it head on, and I'm very happy that he is. Let's talk a little bit about the assassination. I'm sure you're familiar with the details. I don't want to go through them again. President Trump was at the golf, and this fellow had a AK-47 about 500 yards from him. And a member of the Secret Service spotted the rifle and successfully ended what could have been a bloody assassination of President Trump. But the question, of course, what you're hearing a lot, in the aftermath is what's going on? What's going on in the country? Why are tensions so high? And I think it's because we've reached a point as a country where a lot of things are becoming, they're simply not reconcilable. If you talk to a divorce attorney, many couples, many marriages end when their differences are not reconcilable, where the man and the woman simply reach a point where they cannot reconcile their differences because they're so far apart. And I think to some extent that is happening in the country right now, where you have people who are simply saying, one thing, and on the other side, they're saying the other thing. And right in the heart of that division, if you will, or those differences that cannot be reconciled, is the whole topic of immigration. I mean, look, I came here as an immigrant. I came here with my parents many years ago, came here from Cuba, but we followed a process to come to the United States, as did many Cubans. I think immigration is good. I love to see more legal immigration into the United States. We need it. So I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But I'm not in favor of what we've seen here the last 2 or 3 years, when you've brought in people that you're not really vetting properly, who are not going through the regular channels, and they're coming into the country in a very chaotic and disorderly way. And a lot of people resent it. Take the case of Springfield, Ohio, a town of 40 or 50,000 people. Now they have 20,000 Haitians that they got to deal with. Well, we shouldn't do that to a town. If you want to bring in Haitians because of political reasons, fine, then bring them in an orderly fashion and let them come in an orderly fashion. But don't do it, this way. I just read that in Whitewater, Wisconsin, they're having not quite the same problem, but something similar. And I think these are the kinds of issues that tear apart the country, and they tear apart the country for one simple reason: we're not following the law. If the Biden administration was following the laws of the United States, we wouldn't have 12 or 15 million people in the country. We would have some. There would be some, but most of them would be waiting outside of the United States for their asylum request, or their asylum case, I guess. And then others would be coming in, as others normally do, through the regular immigration channels, where you got to go through all of the paperwork and all of that. So I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from. Immigration is an issue that I think drives a lot of this, because people are saying, hey, don't call me a racist, because I don't think that we should be, a town of 40,000 people should be suddenly, be joined by another 20,000 people from Haiti or whatever. Don't call me a racist because of that. Don't call me anti-immigrant because of that. And these labels, I think, also create a lot of these divisions. Races, you're a racist, you're anti-immigrant. No, that's not the case. In Springfield, Ohio, they're not anti-immigrant. They're not racist. They're just logical people who are looking at their situation and saying, this is ridiculous. We can't do this, or do this in this fashion. So we have a lot of divisions in the country. And I think immigration, I also think abortion is at the heart of it. Another big issue, I think cultural values. If you have a daughter, do you want your daughter to be playing against a man who identifies as a woman? I wouldn't. I don't have a daughter, but I have a little granddaughter who's 2 years old. But I mean, eventually she's probably going to play in sports in school. I wouldn't want her competing against a man who identified as a woman in track and field or whatever the sport is. That's not fair. That's not fair on the girls. And yet, the Biden administration, through executive order, tried to change the meaning of Title IX so that a man who identifies as a woman would get to play in women's sports. I think those are the issues that are tearing the country apart. And the Biden administration, frankly, pretty much surrendered to the left wing of the Democrat Party, and basically crumbled on the immigration issue, on this whole question of men identifying as women. I think on the abortion cases as well. And I think the countries are deeply divided. And example, abortion. I have no problem with exceptions for rape or incest. I'm willing to go up to 15 weeks if that's what we have to do to compromise. But I can't support abortion in the 9th month of a pregnancy or 8th month of a pregnancy. I mean, that's ridiculous. But yet, that's what you're having to fight with, as I understand. There are 10 states, maybe 9 or 10 states in the union, where it's legal, at least on paper, to have an abortion in the 10th month. How do you reconcile those differences? Very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. So I think that's what the core of most of these problems, and that's why the country is so divided, maybe um, as divided as we've been since the Civil War. That was, of course, back then the issue was slavery and exactly, whether that should be allowed to exist or not, and that tore the country apart. I hope it doesn't tear us apart now, but the divisions are very deep, and I think it reflects itself in the politics when you bring social media into the mix. Then now you've got a lot of stuff going over the air and going over the internet without a great deal of concern, frankly, for the truth or whatever. So we're living in very difficult times, extremely difficult times right now, very angry times, I would put it. And it really calls for seriousness on both sides. Both sides have to lower the volume. I've been critical of Trump at times, so don't, I'm not going to give Trump a pass on all of this. I've been critical of him. But my goodness, what they say about him is pretty rough too. So let's be critical of the other side. Both sides need to have a truce, as they do in the military or in the war, when both sides have a ceasefire and say, hey, we're going to stop doing this. And let's try to get some things done for the country. And we're going to stop all the name calling and all the demonization of whatever the word is, of people, demonize or whatever the word is, of people, and start at least having conversations so that people can get things done rather than just blame each other for everything and get gin up all this hatred that's out there. That, there again, we potentially, Donald Trump was almost killed again. Now, that he didn't get to fire a shot like he did the last time, but, he was close enough that if he had been able to shoot that weapon, he could have done some damage. That's all I can tell you. He could have done some real damage with a weapon like that, and potentially Trump within sight. So we got to come together, and requires leadership on both sides. And I don't know what to say. I hope we do, because we're tearing each other apart in this country. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a wonderful day. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.